I've gathered 100 phrases that can be effectively used in presentations. Let's study them to prepare for the real meeting.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone.
皆さん、おはようございます。
Thank you for being here today. Thank you for being here today.
本日はお越しいただきありがとうございます。
I'd like to start by introducing myself. I'd like to start by introducing myself.
まずは自己紹介をさせていただきます。
Today, I'm going to talk about. Today, I'm going to talk about.
今日はについてお話しします。
The purpose of this presentation is to. The purpose of this presentation is to.
このプレゼンテーションの目的はです。
Let's take a look at the agenda. Let's take a look at the agenda.
アジェンダを見ていきましょう。
I hope to provide you with valuable insights on. I hope to provide you with valuable insights on.
皆さんについての役立つ知見を提供したいと思います。
This topic is important because. This topic is important because.
このテーマが重要な理由はです。
Let me share a quick story to illustrate my point. Let me share a quick story to illustrate my point.
ポイントをわかりやすくするため、簡単な話を一つ共有します。
To begin with, let's consider some background information. To begin with, let's consider some background information.
まずは背景情報を少し考えてみましょう。
First, let's examine. First, let's examine.
まずはを検討しましょう。
Now, I'd like to highlight. Now, I'd like to highlight.
ここで強調したいのはです。
One key point to consider is. One key point to consider is.
考慮すべき重要なポイントはです。
As you can see in this slide. As you can see in this slide.
このスライドで見えるように。
Let's move on to the next point. Let's move on to the next point.
次のポイントに移りましょう。
I'd like to draw your attention to. I'd like to draw your attention to.
に注目してほしいです。
This data shows that. This data shows that.
このデータはを示しています。
In this graph, you can see. In this graph, you can see.
このグラフではが見えます。
To illustrate this, let's look at. To illustrate this, let's look at.
これを説明するためにを見てみましょう。
Now, let's discuss. Now, let's discuss.
ではについて話しましょう。
To elaborate on this. To elaborate on this.
これを詳しく説明すると。
In other words. In other words.
言い換えれば。
This means that. This means that.
これはを意味しています。
Another way to put it is. Another way to put it is.
別の言い方をすると。
Let's break this down further. Let's break this down further.
これをさらに詳しく見てみましょ
う。It's important to note that. It's important to note that.
注目すべき点はです。
Let me give you an example. Let me give you an example.
例を挙げましょう。
For instance. For instance.
例えば。
Here's a case study that illustrates this. Here's a case study that illustrates this.
これを示すケーススタディがあります。
This is supported by research showing that. This is supported by research showing that.
これはを示す研究によって裏付けられています。
In conclusion. In conclusion.
結論として。
To summarize. To summarize.
要約すると。
The key takeaways from this presentation are. The key takeaways from this presentation are:
このプレゼンテーションの重要なポイントは、です。
In short, we have seen that. In short, we have seen that.
簡潔に言うと、私たちは、を見てきました。
Ultimately, we can conclude that. Ultimately, we can conclude that.
最終的に、私たちは、と結論付けることができます。
I hope this has given you a clearer understanding of. I hope this has given you a clearer understanding of.
これで、についての理解が深まったことを願っています。
This leads us to the final point. This leads us to the final point.
これが私たちを最後のポイントに導きます。
To wrap up, I'd like to emphasize. To wrap up, I'd like to emphasize.
結論として、を強調したいと思います。
Thank you for your attention. Thank you for your attention.
ご清聴ありがとうございました。
Let's move on to any questions. Let's move on to any questions.
質問があれば次に進みましょう。
Are there any questions? Are there any questions?
質問はありますか？
I'd be happy to take any questions now. I'd be happy to take any questions now.
今、質問を受け付けます。
What are your thoughts on this? What are your thoughts on this?
これについてどう思いますか？
Please feel free to ask anything. Please feel free to ask anything.
何でも気軽に質問してください。
Let me clarify that for you. Let me clarify that for you.
それをわかりやすく説明しましょう。
That's a great question. That's a great question.
素晴らしい質問ですね。
I appreciate your input. I appreciate your input.
ご意見ありがとうございます。
I'll do my best to answer that. I'll do my best to answer that.
その質問に頑張ってお答えします。
Can you elaborate on your question? Can you elaborate on your question?
質問を詳しく説明していただけますか？
Thank you for bringing that up. Thank you for bringing that up.
そのことを指摘してくれてありがとうございます。
Now that we've covered that. Now that we've covered that.
これでその部分はカバーしましたので。
Let's shift gears and talk about. Let's shift gears and talk about.
では、話題を変えて。について話しましょう。
As we move forward. As we move forward.
これから進めていく中で。
This brings us to. This brings us to.
これが。につながります。
Following that. Following that.
その後は。
On a related note. On a related note.
関連する点として。
In light of this. In light of this.
これを踏まえて。
Building on that idea. Building on that idea.
そのアイデアをもとに。
As a result. As a result.
その結果。
Consequently. Consequently.
したがって。
Thank you for your time. Thank you for your time.
お時間をいただきありがとうございます。
I appreciate your engagement. I appreciate your engagement.
皆さんの参加に感謝します。
It's been a pleasure presenting to you. It's been a pleasure presenting to you.
皆さんにプレゼンテーションできて嬉しく思います。
I look forward to your feedback. I look forward to your feedback.
皆さんのフィードバックを楽しみにしています。
Let's stay in touch. Let's stay in touch.
これからも連絡を取り合いましょう。
If you have further questions, please reach out. If you have further questions, please reach out.
さらに質問があれば、お気軽にご連絡ください。
I'd like to thank the organizers for this opportunity. I'd like to thank the organizers for this opportunity.
この機会をいただいた主催者に感謝します。
Thank you for your attention and participation. Thank you for your attention and participation.
ご参加とご清聴ありがとうございました。
I'm glad to have shared this with you. I'm glad to have shared this with you.
皆さんとこの内容を共有できて嬉しいです。
Thank you once again for your support. Thank you once again for your support.
改めてご支援ありがとうございます。
To put it differently. To put it differently.
別の言い方をすると。
What's crucial to understand is. What's crucial to understand is.
理解すべき重要なことは。
In terms of implications. In terms of implications.
影響について言うと。
Let's consider the benefits. Let's consider the benefits.
利点を考えてみましょう。
From a different perspective. From a different perspective.
別の視点から見ると。
This can be viewed as. This can be viewed as.
これは。として見ることができます。
It's evident that. It's evident that.
明らかに。
This aligns with our goals. This aligns with our goals.
これは私たちの目標と一致しています。
We can also look at. We can also look at.
また。を考慮することもできます。
To summarize the main points. To summarize the main points.
主なポイントを要約すると。
As shown in this chart. As shown in this chart.
このチャートに示されているように。
This image clearly demonstrates. This image clearly demonstrates.
この画像は明確に。を示しています。
The statistics indicate that. The statistics indicate that.
統計は。を示しています。
Looking at this table. Looking at this table.
この表を見ると。
The trends suggest. The trends suggest.
トレンドは。を示唆しています。
This infographic summarizes. This infographic summarizes.
このインフォグラフィックは。を要約しています。
Let's compare this with. Let's compare this with.
これを。と比較してみましょう。
The results are compelling because. The results are compelling because.
結果は説得力があります。なぜなら。
This highlights the importance of. This highlights the importance of.
これは。の重要性を強調しています。
These findings are significant for. These findings are significant for.
これらの発見は。にとって重要です。
I hope you found this useful. I hope you found this useful.
これが役立ったことを願っています。
Let's keep this conversation going. Let's keep this conversation going.
この会話を続けましょ
Your thoughts are important to us. Your thoughts are important to us.
う。あなたの考えは私たちにとって重要です。
I encourage you to think about. I encourage you to think about.
について考えてみることをお勧めします。
Let's collaborate on this moving forward. Let's collaborate on this moving forward.
これからも協力して進めていきましょう。
I'm excited about what lies ahead. I'm excited about what lies ahead.
これからの展望にワクワクしています。
Together, we can achieve. Together, we can achieve.
一緒に。を達成できます。
Thank you for considering this perspective. Thank you for considering this perspective.
この視点を考慮していただきありがとうございます。
Let's make a positive impact. Let's make a positive impact.
ポジティブな影響を与えましょ
I look forward to working with you all. I look forward to working with you all.
う。皆さんと一緒に働けることを楽しみにしています。